Gentlemen, let me tell you about Diana Davidson and the most expensive weekend of her life. Picture this: a 42-year-old senior project manager at Phoenix Architectural Design Group, standing in her attorney's office, staring at a document showing her retirement account balance had just been cut in half. Her lawyer looked across the mahogany desk and said she was lucky to keep what she did. That's when reality hit Diana like a sledgehammer to the skull. She had just lost $125,000 because she thought she was smarter than her husband. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's rewind 3 weeks to when our ambitious architect thought she had everything figured out. Diana Davidson had been married to Grant Davidson for 16 years. Grant was a construction site foreman who managed commercial building crews across the Phoenix Valley. Every evening, he'd come home covered in dust and concrete, talking about permit delays, worker schedules, and the endless bureaucracy of municipal inspections. Diana would nod politely while mentally redesigning their conversation to be more sophisticated. You see, Diana spent her days designing luxury commercial spaces, collaborating with real estate developers who wore Italian suits and discussed aesthetic vision over expensive wine. The contrast between her refined professional world and Grant's blue-collar reality became more glaring every year. She felt trapped in suburban mediocrity, while her talents deserved so much more. Their 2 children, 14-year-old Iris and 11-year-old Felix, had grown accustomed to their mother's increasing distance. Diana loved them, naturally, but they represented another anchor to a life she found increasingly suffocating. Grant seemed content with their routine: work, dinner, homework, supervision, weekend soccer games, repeat. Diana wanted passion, excitement, intellectual stimulation, and luxury. That Wednesday morning in late March, Diana received an email. That would change everything. The subject line read, "Innovative Commercial Design, Trends 2025, Scottsdale Resort Conference." She scrolled through the agenda, noting several sessions that would legitimately benefit her projects. But her attention stopped dead when she saw the keynote speaker, Colin Pierce, commercial real estate developer. Colin was a man who understood Diana's world. Over the past 2 years, they had collaborated on 3 major projects. Unlike Grant, who saw buildings as functional structures to be erected efficiently, Colin appreciated that spaces could inspire and transform human experience. He was cultured, well-dressed, and spoke her professional language fluently. He was also married with 2 children, but Diana had noticed that his marriage seemed as stagnant as her own. The registration fee was $440, but Diana justified it as essential professional development. She clicked, "Register now," with the satisfaction of someone making a smart career. Oh, the investment. How perfectly reasonable. How completely professional. That evening at dinner, she casually mentioned the conference to Grant, while he consumed his spaghetti with the mechanical efficiency of a man refueling for tomorrow's labor. "Another conference?" Grant asked without looking up. "Didn't you attend one last month?" "That focused on sustainable materials," Diana explained patiently. "This one covers commercial design trends. It's crucial for staying current with client expectations and industry innovations." Grant nodded and returned to discussing Felix's upcoming soccer tournament. Diana felt invisible again, unappreciated for her sophisticated professional requirements. Poor Diana. If only she knew that Grant's apparent disinterest was actually careful observation. Friday afternoon arrived with Diana feeling more excited than she had in months. She left the office early to pack an overnight bag, selecting clothes that reflected her professional status, rather than her suburban mom identity. The black cocktail dress she chose for the evening networking session was something she never wore in her daily routine, too elegant for PTA meetings and grocery shopping. Grant was home early, having completed his site inspection by 3 o'clock. Diana found him in the garage, methodically organizing his tools for Monday's project. The sight irritated her. Such pedestrian concerns when she was preparing for intellectual stimulation and sophisticated networking. "I'm heading out," she called from the doorway, overnight bag in hand. "Drive safe," Grant replied without turning around. "Text when you arrive." Such casual dismissal of her important professional journey. Diana loaded her bag into her silver BMW sedan and backed out of the driveway with a mixture of guilt and anticipation. She was, after all, a dedicated professional pursuing legitimate career development. The fact that she felt more alive than she had in years was merely coincidental. The drive to Scottsdale took 45 minutes through Friday traffic. The resort's entrance impressed her immediately. Palm trees, water features, marble surfaces, and contemporary artwork created an atmosphere of luxury that felt like coming home. This was where Diana belonged, not in a suburban kitchen discussing soccer schedules. She checked in at the front desk, noting every detail of the sophisticated environment. Her room was elegant, modern, with a view of the golf course. Diana changed into her cocktail dress and added jewelry she rarely wore anymore. Looking in the bathroom mirror, she saw the woman she used to be before 16 years of marriage routine had buried her under domestic responsibilities. Her phone buzzed at 6:30 p.m. with a text from Colin. "Networking reception starts at 7. Meet you in the lobby?" Diana's pulse quickened. She texted Grant dutifully. "Arrive safely? Conference dinner starts soon." Such a responsible wife, keeping her husband informed. The lobby buzzed with architects, developers, and design professionals, Diana's tribe. Colin appeared beside her, wearing a navy blazer and crisp white shirt. He looked like he belonged in the luxury developments they had collaborated on, not like someone who spent his days managing construction crews. "Diana," he said, his hand touching her lower back as they walked toward the restaurant. "You look absolutely stunning. Ready for an evening of fascinating professional discourse?" The gesture felt both natural and electric. They found a corner table overlooking the resort's gardens, and conversation flowed effortlessly from project challenges to personal philosophies about design and life's bigger questions. What our sophisticated architect didn't realize was that her husband's work truck was equipped with company GPS tracking, and Grant Davidson was not nearly as oblivious as she assumed. But let's return to our delusional architect and her own evening of professional networking. Diana and Colin settled into their corner table as the restaurant filled with conference attendees. The wine list was extensive, the atmosphere intimate, and Diana felt more intellectually stimulated than she had in years. "Grant doesn't really understand what you do, does he?" Colin asked during the main course, his tone suggesting sympathy for her plight. "He tries," Diana replied, though both of them knew that wasn't entirely accurate. Construction and architecture should complement each other perfectly, but we seem to speak completely different languages these days. Colin nodded with the knowing look of a man who had heard similar complaints from other dissatisfied wives. "My wife thinks real estate development is simply about profit margins. She doesn't appreciate the vision behind creating spaces where people live, work, and dream." How poetic, how sensitive, how perfectly calculated to make Diana feel understood and special. They ordered a second bottle of wine, a $180 vintage that Diana charged to her credit card, without considering that Grant monitored their joint account statements with the same attention he paid to construction blueprints. The restaurant gradually emptied around them, but neither suggested ending their professional discussion. Around 10 o'clock, Colin made his move with the smooth confidence of a man who had done this before. "My suite has a balcony overlooking the golf course," he suggested casually. "We could continue our conversation about the future of commercial design somewhere more private." Diana knew exactly what he meant, but she said yes anyway. After all, she was a sophisticated professional woman who deserved intellectual companionship and adult conversation. If it happened to occur in a luxury hotel suite, well, that was simply where serious business discussions took place. Colin's suite was everything Diana's suburban life was not: elegant, expensive, and designed for pleasure rather than practicality. They sat on the balcony with their wine, discussing dreams they had supposedly postponed for practical family responsibilities. When Colin kissed her, Diana felt like she was finally waking up from 16 years of suburban sleep. She texted Grant at 11:30 p.m., long networking session running late, heading to bed soon. How considerate of her to keep him informed. Saturday morning brought Diana an intoxicating mixture of guilt and exhilaration. She had breakfast with Colin in the restaurant, maintaining professional distance in public, while the undercurrent of sexual tension made every conversation feel charged with significance. They attended a few conference sessions together, maintaining the fiction of legitimate professional development. "The resort has an excellent spa," Colin mentioned casually during lunch. "I've booked a couples massage for this afternoon. It would be a shame to miss such an opportunity for relaxation." Diana should have declined. should have driven home to Grant and the children, should have remembered that she was a wife and mother with responsibilities. Instead, she heard herself saying, "That sounds absolutely perfect." The spa experience was pure indulgence. 2 hours in a private treatment room, followed by time in the relaxation lounge, feeling pampered and desired in ways she had forgotten were possible. This was how Diana Davidson deserved to be treated, not like a suburban housewife whose most exciting decision was which soccer snacks to bring. That evening, they dined at the resort's upscale steakhouse. Colin ordered another expensive bottle of wine to celebrate their successful collaboration. Diana charged the $240 meal to her credit card, completely absorbed in feeling sophisticated and appreciated. The cost barely registered. After all, she earned excellent money at the architectural firm. They spent Saturday night together in Colin's suite. Diana told herself this was a temporary escape, a brief return to feeling attractive and intellectually valued. Sunday morning and suburban reality seemed very far away. But while Diana was discovering her authentic self in luxury hotel accommodations, Grant Davidson was having a much different weekend. You see, Grant's construction company used GPS tracking on all work vehicles for insurance and efficiency purposes. When Diana had driven to Colin's downtown condo the previous Tuesday for their client meeting, Grant's truck, which Diana had borrowed when her BMW was being serviced, had recorded the location with digital precision. Grant wasn't stupid. 16 years of marriage had taught him to recognize the signs of a restless wife. The expensive clothes that appeared in their closet, the increased attention to personal grooming, the mysterious client meetings that seemed to occur with suspicious frequency. But Grant was a methodical man who built things to last. If his marriage was crumbling, he wanted to understand exactly why and how. Thursday morning, while Diana was planning her weekend of professional development, Grant had called Bryce Norwell, a private investigator recommended by his attorney. The consultation was brief and businesslike. Grant provided Diana's work address, car description, and phone number. He mentioned the upcoming conference and his concerns about her recent behavior. "I need to know what's really happening," Grant told Bryce. "If my marriage is over, I want documentation. If my wife is lying to me, I want proof." Bryce's rate was $75 per hour plus expenses. Grant withdrew $600 from their joint checking account, enough to cover the weekend investigation. If Diana noticed the withdrawal, he would explain it as equipment costs for an upcoming project. Friday afternoon, Bryce began surveillance as Diana left work early to prepare for her conference. He followed her home, documented her packing an overnight bag, and was positioned outside the Scottsdale resort when she arrived with obvious excitement about her weekend plans. By Saturday evening, Bryce had photographed Diana and Colin entering the resort together, dining intimately, visiting the spa as a couple, and returning to Colin's suite both Friday and Saturday nights. Each image was time-stamped and professionally documented. Grant received regular text updates throughout the weekend, each one confirming what he had already suspected but needed to prove legally. Sunday morning checkout felt bittersweet for Diana. The weekend had been everything she had hoped: sophisticated conversation, luxury accommodations, and the intoxicating feeling of being desired by a man who understood her professional aspirations. Colin kissed her carefully in the parking lot, maintaining the appearance of professional colleagues for any observing conference attendees. "I'll call you next week about the Henderson project," he said, loudly enough for others to hear, then whispered, "This has been incredible, Diana. We need to find ways to collaborate more often." Diana drove home, feeling alive for the first time in years. The 45-minute journey gave her time to construct her story about valuable professional development and important networking opportunities. She had legitimate conference materials and business cards to prove her attendance. Everything was perfectly reasonable. Grant was in the backyard when she arrived, helping Felix practice soccer kicks while Iris read on the patio. The scene looked like something from a family magazine. The devoted father spending quality time with his children on a beautiful Sunday afternoon. Diana felt a familiar pang of suffocation at the predictable domestic tranquility. "How was the conference?" Grant asked, wiping sweat from his forehead with a work towel. "Extremely productive," Diana replied smoothly. "I learned about several innovative approaches to commercial design that should help with upcoming client presentations." Grant nodded and returned to coaching Felix's footwork. Such minimal interest in her professional growth and intellectual stimulation. Diana went inside to unpack, already missing the sophistication of resort accommodations and adult conversation. What Diana didn't know was that Grant had spent his Sunday morning in a very different way. He had met Bryce Norwell at a coffee shop near their neighborhood to review the weekend's documentation. The manila folder contained 37 photographs, each time-stamped and professionally composed. The images told a clear story. Diana and Colin arriving at the resort together Friday evening, dining intimately at window tables, holding hands during walks through the lobby, entering Colin's suite both Friday and Saturday nights, and kissing goodbye in the parking lot Sunday morning. Bryce had also documented their spa appointment and obtained a clear photograph of Colin's license plate. "Your wife wasn't attending conference sessions," Bryce reported matter-of-factly. "She spent the weekend as this man's romantic companion. I followed him back to his residence and confirmed his identity through vehicle registration. Colin Pierce, age 44, married with 2 children, works in commercial real estate development." Grant studied each photograph methodically. 16 years of marriage had ended in 37 digital images. "What's my next step?" Grant asked. "Document everything," Bryce advised. "Keep copies of these photos in multiple locations. Check your financial records for unusual expenses. Contact a divorce attorney before confronting your wife. Arizona is a community property state, so timing and preparation matter significantly." Grant drove home with the folder on his passenger seat, feeling strangely calm. The uncertainty was over. Now he could plan accordingly. Monday morning returned Diana to her routine, but everything felt different. Colin sent professional emails about legitimate projects, but the subtext was obvious to both of them. They scheduled a lunch meeting for Wednesday to discuss project timelines and design specifications. Wednesday's lunch led to an afternoon at Colin's downtown condo. Thursday brought another excuse for a client meeting. By Friday, they had established a pattern of stolen moments between professional obligations, each encounter making Diana feel more alive and appreciated. Diana was careful about covering her tracks. She used cash when possible, parked in different locations, and created believable stories about client meetings and site inspections. For 3 weeks, the system worked perfectly. Diana felt like she had finally found balance between her mundane family obligations and her authentic need for intellectual and physical stimulation. But Grant Davidson was not the oblivious construction worker Diana assumed him to be. He had spent 16 years building a life with careful attention to detail and structural integrity. When that foundation showed cracks, he investigated thoroughly before planning repairs or demolition. Grant's attorney, Adrian Caldwell, had reviewed Bryce's photographic evidence and outlined Grant's legal options, with the precision Diana usually reserved for architectural specifications. Arizona's community property laws were clear and unforgiving. Assets acquired during marriage belonged equally to both spouses, regardless of who earned or accumulated them. Diana's retirement account had grown to $275,000 over 18 years of contributions. 16 of those years had occurred during their marriage, making approximately $244,000 subject to community property division. Grant's share would be $122,000. But Adrian suggested requesting $125,000 for cleaner documentation. "The retirement account split will hurt her most," Adrian explained. "It's immediate, substantial, and irreversible. She can't hide money or claim poverty when the court orders a direct transfer." Grant also learned about qualified domestic relations orders, legal documents that would transfer his portion of Diana's retirement directly to his own account without tax penalties or early withdrawal fees. The system was designed to protect divorcing spouses from financial manipulation. Tuesday afternoon, 3 weeks after the conference, Grant decided to end his wife's double life. Diana had texted him about another difficult client meeting that would keep her late at the office. Grant's GPS tracking showed her actual location, Colin's downtown condo, where she had been spending increasingly frequent afternoons. Grant called Diana at 4:30 p.m. while she was presumably discussing design specifications with her lover. "Diana," his voice was controlled and deliberate, "we need to talk when you get home." "Is everything all right?" Diana asked, suddenly alert. "Are the children okay?" The children are fine. Just come home when you finish your meeting." The call ended abruptly, leaving Diana with an uncomfortable knot of anxiety in her stomach. Colin noticed Diana's expression change after the phone call. "Everything all right?" he asked from the kitchen of his downtown condo, where they had been discussing anything but architectural specifications. "I think so," Diana said, though Grant's tone had been unlike anything she had heard from him before. "I should probably head home earlier than planned." The drive back to their suburban neighborhood felt longer than usual. Grant's work truck was in the driveway, which struck Diana as odd for a Tuesday evening. He typically worked late on Tuesdays, preparing materials and schedules for midweek concrete pours. Diana found Grant sitting at their kitchen table with a manila folder positioned in front of him like evidence in a courtroom. Iris and Felix were upstairs, presumably doing homework, and the house felt unusually quiet. Something in Grant's posture made Diana's stomach tighten with anxiety she couldn't quite identify. "How was your meeting?" Grant asked without looking up from the folder. "Very productive," Diana replied carefully. "The client finally approved our revised space planning proposals after weeks of back-and-forth negotiations." Grant opened the folder with deliberate slowness. Inside were photographs, large, professional color prints that made Diana's knees go weak. The first image showed her and Colin entering the Scottsdale resort lobby together, both carrying overnight bags with obvious intimacy. "Grant, I can explain," Diana began, but her voice sounded hollow even to herself. "Can you?" Grant slid another photograph across the table. It showed them kissing in the resort parking lot Sunday morning, captured with telephoto clarity. "Because I'm genuinely curious how this fits with your conference attendance and professional development goals." Diana sat down heavily in the chair across from him, her mind racing through potential explanations and damage control strategies. "How did you get these photographs?" "Professional investigator," Grant replied with the matter-of-fact tone he used when discussing construction materials. "Bryce Norwell, highly recommended by my attorney, Adrian Caldwell. Excellent work ethic and attention to detail." He continued placing photographs on the table, like playing cards in a deadly serious game. Diana and Colin at various restaurants over the past 3 weeks, entering his downtown condo building, walking through hotel corridors. Each image was time-stamped with digital precision. "Your work truck's GPS tracking was very helpful," Grant added conversationally. "Amazing how modern technology can pinpoint exact locations and times. Your Tuesday client meetings consistently occurred at 1247 North Central Avenue, Unit 15B, Colin Pierce's residence." The room felt like it was spinning. Diana tried to salvage something from the wreckage. "Grant, please let me explain. This was a mistake, a temporary moment of weakness. Colin doesn't mean anything significant to me. I can end this immediately." Grant finally looked at her directly. His expression was completely calm, which somehow felt more threatening than anger would have been. "Diana, I've already filed for divorce." The words hit like physical blows. "What? When?" "This morning. Divorce papers should be delivered to your office tomorrow by a professional process server." Diana felt panic rising in her chest like floodwater. "Grant, please, we can work through this situation. 16 years of marriage, our children, everything we've built together over nearly 2 decades. "Everything we built," Grant repeated slowly, his tone suggesting he was savoring the phrase. "That's an interesting choice of words, Diana. Let's discuss what we've actually built together." "I don't understand what you mean." Grant's smile was not pleasant. "Your retirement account, for example. That 403B you've been contributing to for 18 years through your architectural firm. Very impressive balance. Approximately $275,000 as of last month's statement." Diana stared at him, not understanding where this conversation was heading. "Arizona is a community property state, Diana," Grant continued with the patience of someone explaining basic mathematics to a slow student. "Assets acquired during marriage belong equally to both spouses, regardless of who earned or accumulated them." The legal terminology felt like a foreign language. "What does that have to do with anything?" 16 years of your retirement contributions happened during our marriage," Grant explained. "That makes approximately $244,000 of your account balance marital property. Community property law entitles me to half of the marital portion." Diana felt cold dread creeping through her body. "Half of what amount?" $125,000, Grant said clearly. Round numbers are easier for court documentation. The figure hit Diana like cold water. $125,000. More than 2 years of her gross salary vanishing because of weekend hotel stays and Tuesday afternoon escapades. You can't do that, Diana said weakly. Actually, I can. It's called a Qualified Domestic Relations Order, QDRO for short. The court will order your retirement plan administrator to transfer my portion directly to my own retirement account. No taxes, no penalties, no negotiations, just mathematical justice. Diana felt tears starting. Grant, please, we can attend counseling. We can repair this marriage. I made a terrible mistake, but we can fix it. Diana, Grant said with devastating calm, you spent 3 weeks planning elaborate deceptions so you could have sex with Colin Pierce in luxury accommodations while I stayed home caring for our children. You used our joint credit card to pay for romantic dinners I never got to share with you. You betrayed 16 years of marriage vows for excitement and sophistication. He closed the folder and stood up. The cost of that excitement is $125,000, plus half our other marital assets, plus primary custody of Iris and Felix, plus spousal support calculations based on our income differential. You're taking my children away from me? I'm protecting our children from a mother who lies with stunning creativity and treats marriage vows like optional suggestions. The court will determine what custody arrangement serves their best interests. That night, Grant moved into their guest bedroom while Diana lay awake in their king-size bed, calculating the financial devastation of her choices. $125,000 from retirement savings, legal fees for divorce proceedings, potential spousal support payments, child support calculations, the cost of maintaining 2 separate households. Diana lay in the darkness, adding, in numbers that grew more devastating with each calculation. Colin called the next morning, but Diana couldn't bring herself to answer. How could she explain that their sophisticated affair had cost her more money than most people earned in 3 years? That her husband had systematically documented their romantic weekends with the same methodical precision he used for construction project planning? The divorce papers arrived at Phoenix Architectural Design Group Thursday afternoon. The process server found Diana in the middle of a client presentation about a mixed-use development, forcing her to excuse herself and read the legal documents in her office bathroom for privacy. Everything Grant had threatened was documented in precise legal language: dissolution of marriage, division of community property, parenting plan modifications, and the Qualified Domestic Relations Order that would split her retirement account. Diana called Colin from her car in the underground parking garage. Diana, I've been trying to reach you since yesterday. Is everything all right? Grant knows about us, Diana said, her voice barely steady. He's filing for divorce. He's demanding half of my retirement account through some legal mechanism I never knew existed. Silence stretched across the phone connection. Then Colin asked the question that revealed everything about his character. How much money are we discussing? $125,000. Another long pause. Diana, I need to tell you something important. Harper discovered our relationship as well. She hired her own investigator. I'm also facing divorce proceedings. The irony was perfect, both marriages ending simultaneously, both spouses demanding financial justice for identical betrayals. Diana and Colin had thought they were sophisticated adults pursuing intellectual and physical fulfillment. In reality, they were predictable cliches whose expensive appetites had attracted expensive consequences. The divorce process consumed 7 months of legal maneuvering, mediation sessions, and financial discovery proceedings. Diana's attorney, Hudson Reynolds, attempted various strategies to protect her retirement account, but Arizona community property laws were clear, established, and completely unforgiving. Grant's attorney, Adrian Caldwell, was methodical and thorough. Every document was precisely prepared. Every legal precedent was researched and cited. Every financial asset was identified, evaluated, and properly categorized for division. In month 3, the court ordered complete financial disclosure from both parties. In month 5, the judge approved the QDRO with mathematical precision. In month 6, $125,000 was electronically transferred from Diana's retirement account to Grant's, with the finality of a bank vault closing. The final settlement gave Grant primary custody of Iris and Felix, with Diana receiving alternate weekends and Wednesday evening visits. Grant kept the family home and his work truck. Diana received her BMW and half of their joint savings account. The house she had found suffocating became the stable environment her children needed, while she searched for a downtown condo that would accommodate her reduced financial circumstances. Colin and Diana attempted to continue their relationship after both divorces were finalized, but the magic had evaporated completely. The luxury hotel weekends that had once seemed so exciting now felt like evidence exhibits in court proceedings. They broke up 4 months after their divorces became final, each unable to look at the other without calculating the cost of their sophisticated romance. Grant also discovered that Colin's wife, Harper Pierce, would appreciate knowing about her husband's extracurricular activities. He sent Harper copies of Bryce's photographs with a brief explanatory note. Harper filed for divorce 2 weeks later, ensuring that Colin's community property education would be as expensive as Diana's. Now, 14 months after that Tuesday afternoon confrontation, the Davidson family has found its new equilibrium. Diana lives in a downtown Phoenix condo that costs $12,800 monthly, nearly double what she wants to pay, but necessary for maintaining professional appearances. She sees Iris and Felix every other weekend, and they seem smaller each time, having adapted to their parents' separation, with the resilience children develop when adult chaos disrupts their world. Diana continues working at Phoenix Architectural Design Group, carefully maintaining professional boundaries with all male colleagues. She has learned that mixing business relationships with personal desires can be the most expensive education available. Grant still works as construction site foreman, managing commercial building crews across the Phoenix Valley. He still lives in their former family home with Iris and Felix, providing the stability that children need during difficult transitions. His work truck still has GPS tracking that records every location with digital precision, but Grant now has an additional $125,000 in his retirement account, money that will compound with interest over 23 years until he's ready to stop working. Money that will be there because he didn't ignore evidence when it appeared. Money that represents justice served through legal channels rather than emotional revenge. Diana learned the most expensive lesson of her professional life: betrayal has precise financial consequences that compound far beyond the initial pleasure. Grant learned that systematic documentation and legal preparation can protect a man's assets more effectively than trust or forgiveness. Some mistakes are so expensive that you spend years paying for them. Diana's 3-week affair cost her $125,000, primary custody of her children, and the comfortable suburban life she had taken for granted. That's graduate-level education in community. Property law, and the tuition was non-refundable. Justice doesn't always look dramatic or cinematic. Sometimes it just looks like a retirement account statement with substantially less money than you expected to see, and the cold satisfaction of knowing that actions have consequences, especially when those actions involve betraying the man who builds things to last.